you are great at polity, so you should aim for an 80% accuracy in polity. Let us say art and culture is your nightmare. Then it is okay if you're getting a 30-35%, 40% accuracy in it. And this makes this exam very individualistic.
I have seen students who have even attempted 98 questions and come back. And I've also seen educators who advise, just count your numbers and take valid guess because there is negative marking also involved. Don't take out blind guesses. In that way, a student gets very confused. Where do you see the way?
A, at least 20-25 mocks. B, if you're above 85 to 90 on an average in any mock, you're in a good space. C, at least attempt 2 or 3 papers in the actual time format.
There's another thing about current affairs too. कि कितना पढ़ना है, कहाँ तक पढ़ना है, एग्जाम्स के कितने दिन पहले तक करंट अफेयर्स छोड़ना है, कहाँ से पढ़ना है, मंथली मैगजीन पढ़ना है या न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ना है.
We as an industry exist because our education system failed us.
As an educator in polity, one question that you think may turn up on this during this prelims. A lot of people are confused कि कितना स्टैटिक तक पढ़ना है, कितना डायनामिक तक. तो उसको कैसे डिवाइड करना है?
Fantastic question.
Let's cut all the crap. Just the way UPSC keeps on cutting all my crap knowledge, which I think कि ये भी एग्जाम में आ जाएगा. लिख लेती हूँ, ये भी शायद पेपर में आ जाएगा. इन सारे चीज़ों को क्रैप बोल के वो डस्टबिन में फेंक देते हैं, सवाल ला के कहीं से डाल देते हैं, जिसका ना जवाब ढूंढते ढूंढते ना और एक नया सवाल आ जाता है. And how do I go about this? कितना पढ़ना है? Are you also preparing right now, like opening up your newspapers and going through the current affairs? Wait, hold on, just hold on. I think if you are a serious aspirant, then this is your podcast. And if not, then please scroll up. This is not for you. But if you're seriously planning to see your name out there in that PDF list, don't skip this. Because I'm talking to someone who has molded thousands of students who came from being aspirants to an officer right now. सबके favorite and मेरे अपने favorite. Atish Mathur sir.
Very, very kind and genuinely very happy to be here. It's a privilege. Honestly, it's a privilege.
Sir, it's my privilege being, coming from being your student, to finally interviewing you. I think now I'll settle this course. So, we are hardly 7 days away from prelims.
Yeah.
What is the best way to revise for prelims in the next 7 days?
There are some cardinal rules. First is, of course, don't do anything that you've not done before. B, allocate either a full day or half a day to one particular subject, and whatever you can do within that full day or half a day, just finish it up. You would have your tables or your charts or your short notes for a few things, like you'll have a table for your dance forms, your art forms, you'll have a timeline of historical developments. Just quickly go through them. Ignite your photo based memory as much as you would ignite your cognitive memory. Try to just keep things in the periphery. More importantly, I think it's important to take some rest. I think the exam is at 9 o'clock in the morning, and if you're sleeping at 4 o'clock, you will not be your sharpest self. The question that you would have gotten right if you would have slept well, there's a very good chance you'll get that question wrong because you've not slept well. So, as much as the last 7 days is about giving it all, it's also ensuring that you are at your finest self at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Being
If
very
you're not,
important.
if you're not, then you're going to have a very difficult time. So yeah.
So, when it is almost महीने खत्म होते जाते हैं, calendar wise होता है, normally I've seen students, including myself, what I used to do is have A, B, C categories of subjects. A में मेरा polity, modern history and my strength subjects were there. B में I had medieval and depending upon also PYQs कितना उसमें से आया था. C में I would put जिसमें मेरा ज़्यादा hard work में जितना भी कर लूँ मैं ज़्यादा score नहीं कर पाऊँगी. Also it is not that high yielding. Like for me, I had ancient history in that. And कुछ लोग medieval भी डालते हैं. How do we categorize in the next 2 months or 3 months before the exam, that what are the subjects, high yielding subjects that one must focus on?
One of the few things that the UPSC does right, and it does very few things right, is that unlike other government exams, it does not have sectional cutoffs, which means at the end of the day, you would invariably require 105 to be absolutely sure that you're clearing the prelims exam. Now, how you get 105 is nobody's business as long as you get that 105. In a very weirdly eric, esoteric manner, UPSC becomes a spiritual journey, which means your association with the syllabus is your own association, which means you are great at polity. So you should aim for an 80% accuracy in polity. Let us say art and culture is your nightmare. Then it is okay if you're getting a 30, 35%, 40% accuracy in it. And this makes this exam very individualistic. This is why there is no standard format. This is why there is you can't force a child to do everything what everybody does. There are students who really like history. There are students, who don't like polity at all. There's a mental block. So play to your strengths. Try to overcome your battles here or there that you'd have with a few subjects, as long as you cross 105. So for instance, let us say a polity, you started doing your tests and you're getting about a 70, 75% accuracy. Look at a 10% jump, try to make it an 85%. Take more educated guesses, try to cover up those gaps that you would have ordinarily not done, and perhaps do the bare minimum for, let us say, defense current affairs, because a lot of people don't get it. The end game is 105. How you get that 105 is your journey, and people should really understand that.
So this is a very valid point. You told that take educated guess when you mentioned that. I have seen students who have even attempted 98 questions and come back.
Yeah.
And I've also seen educators who advise, just count your numbers and take valid guess because there is negative marking also involved. Don't take out blind guesses. In that way, a student gets very confused. Where do you see the way?
So, attempting this exam in multiple rounds is the way to go. The number of questions that a student should ideally attempt is a very scientific exercise. Again, a scientific exercise dependent on how the student has been attempting mocks. At the end of the day, it's all about accuracy ratios. If a student has low accuracy ratios, whatever they know they get right, whatever they don't know they don't get right, the story doesn't stop there. Then you take a layer more. Is my accuracy low for all subjects? Is my accuracy low for a specific type of questions? And then you fixate on a number or a ballpark number that invariably you should be attempting, say, 80 questions, 85, 90, depending on the case. There are students who attempt 50 questions and get 90 marks, but the second they start attempting 80 questions,
Yeah.
they start losing marks more. So the answer to that question is figure your safe zone out. Don't follow a North Star number that I need to get 98 questions right or 95 questions right. It is your journey. And you'll have an Excel sheet in front of you. X questions right, Y questions wrong, conceptually right, conceptually wrong, factually right, factually wrong, tangentially right. I equated it to something else. I did a PYQ reference. There are 10 different ways to figure this out. But the idea is every student will have a unique ballpark number of 5 plus minus 5 questions. That's generally how they should approach it.
So when you say that, there is also this thing mocks ke bare mein. I myself gave 110 mocks when I was in my preparation board, but I had a time. Now what I used to do is I used to give every week, not that कि एग्जाम के एक महीने पहले मैं मॉक्स, क्योंकि मेरे लिए ये था कि जितना मॉक्स दे रही हूँ, am I able to revise those mocks properly or not? Mocks used to give me a confidence of that exam pressure quote, and that is very valid when I say that a lot of students I have seen exam hall में they would literally be shivering. Mocks would give me that, make me that anxious friendly behavior. Ki, okay, I can get through this. I used to appear mocks from the very first time I started preparing. I've seen people doing it at the end of the month, like 1 month or 2 months before the exam, they're giving around 100, 200 mocks, but they don't get to revise that again.
Right.
But then they feel confident with that. Does that really help? What my question would come here, how many mocks one should attempt in tentatively, and what should be your mock score decently to clear a prelim exam that would make you confident?
Okay. The answer to both these questions lies in the very purpose of mocks, which you beautifully identified. The whole point of a mock exam is to ensure that the real exam doesn't feel real enough.
Hmm.
The mock exam feels like the real exam, and the real exam feels very familiar territory. You're not scared of the ambience, you're not scared of the time, you're not scared of, the entire paraphernalia, the entourage that comes with the exam. That's the primary purpose of the mock, to make you at ease with the process. Second, mocks are supposed to fill gaps in your preliminary consumption of knowledge. That if you've gone through a standard textbook and there is a question that the textbook does not answer, the mock helps you revise that part. Three, it also gives you a question bank. It's a ready made question bank. And fourth, it challenges what you've learnt. Like, if you are you able to apply what you've learnt to a certain question? As long as you're able to fulfill all of these four objectives, you can get these four objectives in 10 mocks, in 30, in 100, in a 200.
Okay.
But the point is, you should be able to get these four things out of the mocks that you're doing. On an average, at least, 15 to 20 mocks should be done very seriously. And at least 2, 3 mocks should be done in the same time gap, which is where a lot of people go wrong. The prelims exam is a dual exam. So you've got the GS part in the first half and you've got the CSAT part in the second half. A lot of students write back to back exams for the first time during the actual exam,
Oh.
which is where then they suddenly realize, for example, peak heat of Delhi, you're dehydrated, you've not slept. If you were writing the CSAT paper the next day, you would have cleared it.
Yeah.
But because it so happened that you had to write the exam the second half of the day, you were not mentally alert, because you were not trained enough for it. It's like a marathon. Unless you've run and trained for a marathon, and if you actually go attempt an actual marathon, you will fall apart 10 minutes into the marathon. The same thing applies here. So A, at least 20-25 mocks. B, if you're above 85 to 90 on an average in any mock, you're in a good space. C, at least attempt 2 or 3 papers in the actual time format, like sit at 9 a.m. in the morning and then do your afternoon paper, but do it in the exact same way the UPSC does.
Okay.
So these are the three things one must do under all circumstances. And also, what I've realized is mocks have become unnecessarily tough also.
Yeah.
I mean, fundamentally, the game is rigged. The mocks can never be better than the UPSC paper, because the UPSC has the final advantage of setting the paper. If you will never be able to do exactly what the UPSC does, that does not give you the license to ask questions the UPSC would not ask. A lot of kids get very demotivated when they see the kind of questions, a couple of mock tests ask, because then it creates a sense of anxiety. It creates a sense of, oh, I'm not good enough. And it has a spiraling effect. A good mock should make a child think. At the end of the mock, the child should be, ah, I didn't know this, but I could have got this right. If at the end of the mock, the child is, where is this come from? Then there's something wrong with the mock, not wrong with the child. Which is why nowadays, finally, everybody's coming to realize it. And now there's a larger, system around it. Do your PYQs first. Then you'll be able to judge whether the mocks are actually standing some ground. Because you have to be in the same orbit as the PYQs of the exam. At least that's the
So
case.
when we say about PYQs, we have to also see that PYQs are also not same anymore. Like earlier, we used to use the elimination method of only extreme words and remove out. अब इन्होंने क्या किया है कि now they have made 1 and 2 are right, A and B are right. So that gets very confusing. अब when PYQs are itself not static and it is obviously being changing, how does one trust and how much to trust upon PYQs and how to grasp the PYQs?
I think we overestimate the UPSC analysis industry. It is it is a lot like Indian media. You know, sometimes they make mountains out of molehills. Are there pair questions? Yes. Are there randomly framed questions that never were asked? I've seen, at least in my subjects, they've started asking criminal justice of late. They've started asking interpretational provisions which were never to be asked before. How many questions are there? They will not be more than 10% or 15% of the paper. Instead of focusing on the 85% of the paper that could actually be solved very patiently, one tends to fret over the 15% that everybody thought, where has this landed from? Why is this question here? At least imagine how demotivating it is for somebody who's starting out prep. Their perception of the exam becomes it's undoable. And then they start chasing, not the low hanging fruits, but they start chasing the top of the tree without, collecting the fruits from the ground.
Yeah.
And that therefore becomes a vicious cycle. That's where we go wrong, fundamentally go wrong. So, are the questions getting difficult? Yes. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I think we have made the exam tough. UPSC has not made the exam tough. Let me explain this. The more content you publicly put out, the more videos you put out saying we've cracked UPSC's code,
Yeah.
we know the trick to this exam.
Yeah.
Why are you tickling the dragon?
Yeah.
Why are you poking them and telling them, I know how you're asking this question.
Yeah.
I know where you're asking this from. I know your pattern. I know your repetition framework. I know your option combo framework.
Yeah.
You're handing it to them.
Mm.
Which is why when you and this is also a catch 22. How do you tell this to the kids without really letting it to be known to the UPSC? You tell them behind a closed platform. Does not have to be paid. I take free classes all the time. Does not have to be paid.
Yeah.
But don't make it readily available.
Yeah.
This has happened with so many optionals back in the day. There was a time where I remember late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. Psychology was a glorious
Top
optional,
subject. Yeah.
glorious optional.
Public.
Public administration. And when everybody started painting the town red with psychology and public administration, as it is now happening with political science, the UPSC is like, all right, don't don't tempt the dragon, is my point.
I'll come in here. There was this rumor. I don't know if it is rumor or a fact that they come down to Warren and check out कि mocks का क्या चल रहा है. And I think it was leaked somewhere, and they make sure that they don't ask the same questions.
Does the exam conducting authority have a look at what the students are studying, given the fact that the syllabus is partially defined and there's no standard book list? I'm sure they would. There is no reason why they shouldn't. I mean, if you think about it, there's a very popular coaching called Vision.
Yeah.
They used to have their PTs used to be very, very, they had a very good hit ratio. But over a period of time, the number of questions that could be solved through their current affairs has gone down. So is the case with Insights and, a couple of these things. Because the more you beat the drum around it, the more you're telling the UPSC, hey, we know what's your deal. Hey, we know where the magic is. We know how you're doing the trick.
Yeah.
Then the UPSC is like, fine, I'll create a new magic trick. The idea is you have to fundamentally be submissive to the exam. Don't fight. Don't fight the master. Right. Which is why, now what has happened this year is everybody started making these. There's also a views game. Everybody started making these, videos that say, see, the UPSC's repeated this question here, 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 here. This option has been done here, 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 here. And if you don't, and I figured this out, this is the trick to it. UPSC is also going to watch it. So don't. I mean, we all do the same, but we all do the same behind a curtain.
Yeah.
Curtain does not have to be paid. It's just that there must be a curtain. Make it difficult for them
To
to
get
act
you, yeah.
to get to the fact that we know what you're up to. By no means UPSC is an angel. By no means, the questions that they are making and they're setting are up to the mark. In fact, if you see other exams, there's the geoscientist exam that happened this year, the CDS exam that has happened this year. The kind of questions that they've asked is unprecedented. They've asked a question on the US presidential election in a geoscientist exam.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
the fundamental processes of a US presidential election in a geoscientist exam. In a CISF exam, they've asked you a question: are all motions resolutions or are all resolutions motions?
I'm just trying to understand
Wha-
how is it going to be useful. Like,
Right. So I can understand that the toughness for a UPSC exam may warrant a question like
yeah,
this. But imagine.
makes
So,
even no sense for the subjects.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So they are not differentiating between exams anymore. They're like, if information is so readily available to anyone who's preparing,
Yeah.
whether it's a CDS, CISF, UPSC, a CDS, CAPF, UPSC, geoscientist, any of these UPSC conducted exams, we will reduce the gap of toughness between these
Yeah.
exams. Then which is going to get the most tough, which is going to get the toughest? UPSC is going to get it.
UPSC, yeah.
So let's just be patient about it. I mean, and yeah, that's the problem.
So, there's another thing about current affairs too. कि कितना पढ़ना है, कहाँ तक पढ़ना है, एग्जाम्स के कितने दिन पहले तक करंट अफेयर्स छोड़ना है, कहाँ से पढ़ना है, मंथली मैगजीन पढ़ना है या न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ना है. अब करंट अफेयर्स को इंसान कैसे कवर अप करेगा, एंड अगर करना भी होगा तो व्हाट आर द टॉपिक्स, एंड न्यूज़पेपर को फोकस करना चाहिए या मंथली मैगजीन को, एंड एग्जाम्स के कितने दिन तक ही करंट अफेयर्स पढ़ना चाहिए, कितने दिन तक के पहले तक का.
For the prelims, current affairs becomes important one calendar year before the prelims. For the mains, current affairs becomes important one calendar year before the mains. विदिन द मेंस अपने 4 पेपर है और हर पेपर का अपने करंट अफेयर्स रेलेवेंस का टाइमलाइन अलग अलग है. जैसे आईआर में मेंस की 6-7 महीने 7-8 महीने पहले तक के करंट अफेयर्स से क्वेश्चंस बनते हैं. So that you will only know once you've done your syllabus and PYQ. Like you may have to do 1 year current affairs or economics. You may not have to do 1 year current affairs for IR. You will not have to do 1 year polity current affairs. Like for example, paper 2 means polity current affairs is 7-8 months, 9 months before the means. It's not a 12-month story. See, reading the newspaper helps you intangibly. It is like going to college or going to school and talking to a bunch of friends every day. You don't realize, but it has a very small but significant impact over a long period of time. People look at current affairs from a very utilitarian, from a very transactional point of view. I need to do X, will I get Y benefit? But if you've read the newspaper for a year of your life, you will think in a structured manner. You will express yourself better.
So, when you're talking about current affairs, right now, UN में a lot of things happening. IMF का sanction वगैरह हुआ. अब a lot of students are like शायद UPSC ये चीज़ भी पूछ लेगी, क्या करना है. But I think question papers already set हो गए होते हैं, या और are there chances कि that people should also prepare for this?
I think a month before the prelims, the papers are already set.
Okay.
To what I can understand, because it's such a nationally conducted exam, you'll have to transport the papers also. Paper transportation will take at least about a week, 10 days to, reach. So they generally would have the papers in their centers at least 2 weeks before the exam. So that, on the day of the exam, they will decide what set number to release and whatever. A month before the prelims, though, nothing asked. It's nothing asked in the prelims at all, ever.
But this will come for mains.
Mains also a month before. Easily a month and a half before nothing comes in the mains. Not at all.
So the gap that one finishes their prelims and comebacks, and then there is another thing that anxiety, you wait for all the question paper कि सब लोग अपना आंसर की देंगे. And then you are in a dilemma, either to prepare for mains or take a break, or you don't know that paper clear हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है. How does one utilize that? Should they rush into the mains या कैसे करना चाहिए?
3 things. The day the paper gets cleared, by the evening, answer keys will come out. You'll have a ballpark range.
Yeah.
There are 3 kinds of people. 1 who are short writing the exam. 2 who are short not writing the mains. The problem is most people are in the hot zone. They may just clear it, they may not clear it, which is why there is an anxiety that almost every year you'll see every third person you'll meet, every year everybody expects say 100 to be the cutoff. Every third person you'll meet will be getting a 98
Yeah.
to 102, and everybody is going to be on the thin line. Ground rule is the result comes out, calculate your answer key, no matter what it is, take 3 days. Take 3 days to do a hard reset. What has now happened is that they have reduced the time between the pre and the mains drastically. Now, this is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because they also get lesser time to play with contemporary developments in the mains exam. The bad thing is that you have lesser time to prepare. Unfortunately, what happens because of this is this exam then becomes slightly tilted in the favor of people who are writing the exam for a long time. And it is so contradictory to the whole government policy that you want newer kids to come in. If you want newer kids to come in, you need to give them more time between the pre and the mains to write the mains exam. But when you shorten the time, it is students who've prepared for at least a year and a half or two, the senior veteran aspirants, as we call them, who know the syllabus in and out, who know the exam in and out, they would be at a distinct advantage for the mains exam, which is clearly reflected in this year's results also. You will see very
Yeah.
few people who've cleared it with a minimally elongated time period as far as the exam is concerned. So it's all very messed up in terms of what are you trying to achieve with the exam cycle, you know. So, but again, so what, coming back to your question, yes, take 3 days off, whether you're clearing the mains or not, clearing the pre or not, you'll have to anyways prepare the optional and static GS. So start with optional and GS1. If not this year, it'll help you next year.
Next time.
So at least that 1 month will not get wasted, because by within a month you'll have your result.
Have your exams.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but then, before we started this, we were talking about integration of papers, like prelims and mains को कैसे integrate किया जा सकता है. A lot of people I know, they separate out कि ये prelims के लिए पढ़ना है, ये mains के लिए पढ़ना है. But I've also seen people who integrate it. Like for an example, अगर मैं I'm being questioned about fundamental right, I'm not going to only see कि क्या specifically prelims आएगा. Get into the concept note completely so that मैं उसे answers में भी कहीं ना कहीं से use कर सकती हूँ. बट देन अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल आर कॉन्फ्यूज कि कितना स्टैटिक तक पढ़ना है, कितना डायनामिक तक. तो उसको कैसे डिवाइड करना है?
Fantastic question. So this is something which I'm polarized about. One, the segregation of pre and mains does not universally apply to the exam as a whole. You can segregate maybe a science and tech. You can segregate maybe a disaster management environment, but you can't segregate polity. For example, if you're reading Article 19 you're reading Article 19 for the first time, and I'm telling you Article 19 has these freedoms, you have speech, expression, movement, association, yada yada yada, and then I say, hold on, that's it. The applications of it you need to do for the mains exam, so you can't study it. It's not possible.
Yeah.
A good student, a student who really is well informed, will study everything once, then segregate for the pre, then segregate for the mains, and then finish the cycle. You can't have a bumble relationship with this exam.
Yeah.
You can't be very, very, to and for. This exam is a knowledge based exam. Spend some time reading it, be well informed. And even in the pre now, they've started asking, questions on basic structure in my subject. They've started asking legal aid eligibility. They've started asking education policy in the prelims exam. Where is education policy in the prelims syllabus? But they're still asking you. So when two things have happened. One, the prelims exam is not strictly prelims. Two, even in the mains, GS 1, 2, 3, and 4 are not separate papers anymore.
Yeah.
Social issues and social justice
Well,
are correlated. Globalization is in paper 1, liberalization is in paper 3. In paper 2, they're asking you a question on LPG. How are you going to study all of this? And for example, let's say you studied federalism, center state relations. For you to have the time to think, can I apply federalism to civil services? The fact that state civil servants also implement central laws is a question on federalism. How can you do that 3 months before the pre and the means? You'll need some time to understand it. And understanding takes time. I'm not asking you to read it extensively. Read less, but give yourself the time to think. That only happens when you're not studying with a with an immediate prelims target.
Prelims target, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the
What I used to do is I would initially give the first reading
yeah,
without holding any pen and paper, nothing. I
Yeah.
just read it like a storybook.
exactly.
Then I would not advise people to do what I did because there is no clear hard rule for anyone. That you have your own strength and
But that's a good way to start.
exactly.
Read it like how you're reading it.
Geography मुझे रटना पड़ा था because I know that it is not my strength. I know there are my weak points too.
Yeah.
I skipped out on medieval. I would not advise people to do that because I was confirmed कि मैं बाकी subject में pull कर दूंगी.
Hmm.
But I would not advise anyone to take that risk. That is
Mhm.
going to be a stupid risk, I would ever say. What I used to then do is hold two pencil and pen. I would underline and get it done. Then I would go to highlighter. I had two different highlighters in both my hand. One blue, one light pink or yellow. If it is blue, then it is mains. I would just write M side mein and other one PPPP.
Hmm.
So I had one thing in my mind कि अगर exam के 5 दिन पहले मुझे revise करना पड़ेगा, I should be able to revise that in maybe just within a day I should be able to revise the
Yes.
entire book. वरना मैं फिर से revise करते करते it will get very difficult on my part. There's another thing that comes to all the students that I have seen when they're doing the segregation of prelims में ये आएगा, mains में ये आएगा. They end up limiting themselves or over going on the board, like reading DD Vashu.
Mhm.
I mean, you're not going to, UPSC doesn't want you to get a PhD on that. Yet, UPSC won't ask this. Like, I don't think knowledge anyway goes waste with basic things. For an example, if, again, that's a curiosity, I would say, IMF का अभी जो चीज हुआ, one can easily say कि okay, this is not going to come in this year prelim. IMF का कैसे पाकिस्तान को sanction मिला and all that. But that knowledge would never go waste. It's just a hardly 1 minute newspaper reading of that
Mhm.
article. Either we're underdoing it or overdoing it. How does one find that balance?
One way is what you've done is to segregate within the core text. Two is, you're right, information never goes waste. For example, the whole IMF thing. You could have a question next year in the prelims on the IMF. You could have a question in the mains on multilateralism versus regionalism. You can have a question on IMF reforms. You can have a question on the nature of geopolitics to be very economic in its essence. You could apply this to international ethics in paper 4. You could apply this to an Indo-Pak, Indo-China, Indo-US answer. So, and this is just at the top of the hat. I'm thinking of 5, 6 things. But for me to do that, all I had in mind was my syllabus. The best way to figure out what is relevant or not, does it fit into the syllabus or there is a PYQ close to it? Automatically, when you underline what is pre for the what is important for the pre, what is important for the mains, you'll be able to do that better. For example, let's say we did. Now, my problem with reading external sources is there is a reason why I would put out my notes every year, because it is not the job of the kids to read DD Basu
Yeah.
and get so confused. The problem is DD Basu is a great intellectual boost,
Yeah.
and kids love, an intellectual high. But the problem is at the end of the day, you're still writing an answer. Now that answer has to have a structure. What has happened, and Ramesha, of late is 3, 4 years ago, the marks were varying in the optionals. GS, everybody was invariably getting the same marks. But in the last 3, 4 years, your essay, your ethics, and your GS is where there is the greatest variation. Almost everybody, no matter what your optional subject is getting invariably the same range of marks. Now, why is this happening? This is perhaps happening because the UPSC is setting the ground that what optionals don't really matter, and therefore we could look at restructuring it a few years down the line.
Removing optionals.
So yes, so this could be one of the things. We never know when it's going to happen. Nobody knows, but this could be setting the stage for it. What is happening as an outcome of it is that there are kids who've gotten 120 last year in their essay and have gotten a 60 in their essay this year. How? Has one essay of theirs not been checked? Or how bad could they have written for them to get a 50% dip? That means A, it's being checked very thoroughly. B, there is a great degree of opacity. C, nuance starts to matter.
Yeah.
So when nuance starts to matter, that your answer has to be qualitatively and quantitatively better than mine, then you'll have to write more points than me. You'll have to write them in a more effective manner, and your answer should be more pleasing to the eye than mine.
Yeah.
This is where the role of additional information comes in. The problem with additional information is people are not able to put it in context to the exam,
Yeah.
which is why DD Basu gets recommended. And I've heard people say read MP Gen, which is a constitutional law textbook for law schools. I don't understand why, but such is the case.
I've seen that even, I am a very lazy person. I will only do smart work. I can't do a hard work. क्यों झूठ बोलूं, अब नहीं होता है hard work मेरे से. I'll only read as much as I can retain in my mind. When it came to medieval and ancient history, I picked up Tamil Nadu book. For me, it was like एक ही जगह पे सब कुछ पढ़ लेती हूँ.
It's easier.
Yeah.
Hmm.
For art and culture, I went for the NCRTs and किसी का notes उठा लो पढ़ लो. But I've seen people doing so fat book. इतने में तो मैं अगर art and culture पढ़ूंगी तो पता चला कल को I don't know. I think
You'll
I'll
become
become
Harappa yourself, and it'll take you an era to finish it.
I've seen people doing Romila Thapar and everything. I cannot. I did that. I'm not denying that. But when I was in college, when it was a part of my curriculum,
हाँ,
अब मैंने college में भी वो ना ऊपर से पढ़ा था. अब मैं
like
कहाँ इतना
economics,
पढ़ूं?
I've heard people refer Dattan Sundaram, and I said those are.
Is it for optional or
I mean, it's recommended text or optional. Don't read optional text for GS.
GS? Yeah. That's quite.
At the end of the day, the simplest answers with the greatest diversity, which makes the job of the examiner easy, will get you the most marks. Why are we overcomplicating it? You've written 10 points which are nice to read, you've written them well. You made my job as your examiner to read the answers, you've written it neatly, I'll give you marks.
Yeah.
There is no X factor.
Don't have to show off that I have read.
There is no X factor to answer writing. There's absolutely no X factor. And the simplest way is think like your notes have to be in the form of your answers. That is the simplest way to develop an innate ability. Now, for example, because you studied X through your college, you're now working, you have your own setup. You will approach things with a certain method. There's a method to your madness. You'll do the why, where, what, where, how thing. That's exactly how you would approach the syllabus. Why are you complicating it? Why is anybody complicating it? What is this frameworks business? What is this template business? The idea is these are broadly the things you should cover. These are the things that have to be written in your answers. Think about it. If you're approaching a question on, let's take something very simple, death penalty, right? What is it? What are your legal provisions? What is it done? How is it done internationally? What are your justifications for death penalty? What are the alternatives to it? Should we not have it? And that's it.
Yeah.
That's how you would approach it. If your answer has all of those things, why will I not give you marks?
So when we say that, I also want to know, अब there is a कहावत, तुम यूपीएससी मटेरियल हो ही नहीं, आपस में कुछ लोग बोल के चले जाते हैं. And I would, not even, like, I would want you to help me out, figure this out. I have a judgment towards a lot of people. I think I met a university friend of mine just a day or two ago, and I've been seeing that person preparing for exam, I think almost 4 to 5 years. Uh, that's okay. A lot of people do. Anudip Durshiti was like in his sixth attempt, he topped the exam. But there is a thing that how do you mold yourself for that exam? Like that person just sat in front of me and told, you know what, Pahalgam mein jo hai, wo to maine nahi kiya tha. I can't think anyone preparing for civil service to chhode. Normally a person would say that. I was taken aback. What? He's like, no, I'm joking. I don't think one can crack this kind of joke when you're preparing for civil service in a serious note. Then again, I see a lot of students coming into Delhi when you go to ORN. I'm sorry to say this, but I find ORN as the biggest circus of life. You would find,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know I can be trolled for that, but
No, but
I had my one of my flatmate when it was 4 to 5 years ago, and the first thing she did, she came from a very far place of West Bengal,
yeah,
and she was the only person to come out ever from her entire district to Delhi. That's a big thing in itself. And the first thing she did is, after joining a very famous coaching institute that charges in a huge amount of
yeah,
money,
guilt.
she downloaded Tinder. अब
Yeah.
I was like कि ठीक है मेरा क्या जाता है अब every single day I'm not judging again अब what is the reason that has got me here to ask this now she is in a different life she doesn't have any bother of giving the civil service exam she's yet saying that she's preparing using that same parents ka funding still paying that to the coaching institute which is highly benefiting from her whatsoever I would call it how many people are actually seriously appearing this exam and how many people would you call how would you as an educator say that this is an UPSC material student?
Okay. The 10 lakh people who fill the form. There are 5 lakh people who appear for it.
10 में से 5 लाख देते भी नहीं है
Nahi. And there are only 1 lakh people who've prepared for the exam.
बाकी 4
Your Baki char is the janta, which is
my rant crowd the one I ranted about
not just that. I mean, the remaining 4 lakh is they're in the very happy preparing. The glorious aspirants. They're very happy that we're aspirants. We're not really. The 1 lakh people who prepare for this, and it's not even 1 lakh, it's actually much lesser, are some of the most hardworking kids you will ever know. Now they are, and that is some real competition because those 70,000 kids, 1 lakh kids who are seriously preparing are a, co- are a are a confluence of every academic pursuit in this country. You have the finest engineers, you have the finest management guys, you've got DU kids, you've got lawyers, you've got humanities doctors. The best of the best is that 70,000, that 1 lakh. That is enough for you to get your act together and study. Now, is this exam fundamentally an IQ driven exam? So people who don't have a bare minimum IQ should not prepare for this? No, that is not the case. CAT is an IQ driven exam. You have to be fundamentally of a certain IQ to be able to solve CAT questions or even JE questions for that matter. The civil services exam is a multitasking, hard work over grey matter, prioritizing, management driven exam, which are skills that don't require a very high IQ but require a very high degree of self awareness. And self awareness is detached from IQ. Most people don't get that right. So, can anybody prepare for this exam? Yes. Should anyone? No. If you don't think you can study for 6 hours every day, for 6 days a week, for one entire year, then the exam is not for you. It's that simple.
consistency
Simple. That it's the basic maths is this. This is required. Everything else is an add-on gyan. There's no such thing called motivation. I refuse to to buy into the motivation paraphernalia. Motivation is nothing but self-discipline.
what is motivation though I mean I just don't know about it
Motivation is this this new era of you can do it, I'm with you, you have the power. Motivation is is selling dreams about the civil services, which is not even true.
Oh, you mean those, IS, IPS entry
Yeah, yeah,
videos
yeah.
and people
Everything,
commenting
everything,
there?
everything.
God.
From teachers saying your life will change because you become a civil servant. From
That's a lie,
the
by the way.
that your life will change because you become a civil servant, or your royal entry videos
Yeah.
and your those electric eyes, those lightning eye.
Instagram followership.
Yeah, 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 all that. What has happened is, especially after the pandemic, a lot of people lost their private jobs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you had a faith in the state, that the state will at least give me a job when nobody else will, and give me a stable job. India is still fundamentally feudal for most parts of it. And everybody has grown up seeing the might of the welfare state. So the second you tell them that here's an internet account, here's a mobile phone, it's going to cost you 10-20K, why don't you prepare for this? It's going to change your life. You're selling a dream to people that you should not be.
Absolutely. Capitalism and consumerism works that way.
You should not be. It is your job to make it affordable, yes. Don't sell the dream to people who don't want to. Everybody wants a good life, but to equate good life to the civil services, no.
That's an Indian system too, sir. I know 90% of the family who say that sarkari naukri, sarkari naukri, sarkari naukri. I remember someone even asked me that अगर आप सरकारी नौकरी लड़की कर रही होती ना तो उसकी शादी हो गई होती. I was like, I'm 21, what are you talking? सरकार भी तुम्हें जेल में डाल देगी. I mean, at that age. And I also know people who are doing that. When I ask them, what is your biggest motivation? I remember I was once in metro in college and somebody was studying. I randomly asked, "Ab kya pad rahe hain?" When you're young, you're in college, hardly 18. They're very curious because there were so many books. And I'm preparing for IRS. I have heard people say I'm preparing for civil service. Why specifically IRS? I asked, sir, why IRS? Bhaiya, why IRS? It's like, क्योंकि वहाँ से ऊपरी बहुत मिलती है. I was taken aback. This cannot be your motivation. Again, I can be wrong. For me, I don't think anything in a negative connection can be my motivation to think of beginning something.
You know, there's a German word called Schadenfreude. When a rich guy drives a BMW and enters into an accident, you want the rich guy to be at fault.
Yeah. Not the BMW.
Not the BMW. You want the rich guy to be at fault. You want if the rich guy has run over a vegetable vendor, you don't know what the facts of the case are. You don't know whose fault it is.
Amir baap ka bigda.
Yeah. That is a relationship that people tend to have with people who are in the civil services. Most people in the civil services are hardworking people who've really got to a point with years of consistency, and most of them are very committed people, right? And most they are a committed bureaucracy. The, the 10% of every profession is bad.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, to say that the civil services is going to make your life, turn your life around and make you crores, and that's why you want to join it. If that's the motivation you're joining, if you're trying to attempt, somewhere you will be exposed for it in the process, right? That's where most people also get separated from the final selection. Most people are very hardworking, and all the glory around IS, IFS, and police services, the kind of work they do.
Phenomenal.
I mean, the kind of there is, in our GS2 syllabus, the role of civil services is in a democracy.
Yeah.
That's the syllabus. The civil services is the government in action. You've elected your representatives, they've made policies, it's the job of the bureaucracy to implement them. So you and I, as ordinary citizens, will face the bureaucracy more than we will face our politicians in an ordinary life. That is the role of civil services in democracy.
So I agree with this. I never wanted to be in bureaucracy. I had never wanted to prepare for this exam in the first place. Coming from Delhi University, my options were very simple. I had different public policy and all this. my mentor Arun Botra sir, who is a senior IPS officer in Odisha cadre, meeting him changed my image about civil service. I had that anti-establishment kind of image where I was like Babu culture and all this. Sir has been some. He started India Cares during COVID pandemic ke time pe, that ended up helping thousands of people without taking a single coin, and he could do that because he was in that space of power there. He utilized that power in helping out people in the downtrodden side. I once asked him what was his journey. He told me we didn't have that much of options. We used to save our money, go for, enroll a class. And he was working and at the same point of time preparing the challenges that he went through. And he missed out IAS only in few marks. In spite of that, the way he has been impacting. So when I feel like, all the Babu cultures are bad, I see a lot of Babus out there who are actually doing something, who can change the way I'm looking at things. So that is
Most
something.
are very, very smart, well read. They keep their head down and they work
Humble.
very, very humble. Knowledge will always give you humility.
Absolutely.
If you are overconfident and if you're cocky after being knowledgeable, then you're not really knowledgeable.
Yeah.
You will never make a sweeping statement that I am here and I am all you need and I have done this and you don't need anything else. Anybody who has the slightest degree of knowledge will always be a very soft spoken person.
Yeah.
And in any profession, if you, I don't know, this sounds very, very, preachy, but there is nothing more intoxicating than the pursuit of excellence.
Yeah.
The excellence, everything else will come. The finest of lawyers that you see in our country aren't the ones who were driven by making a quick buck. But when they start making their money, they make money than most other people in the country. Right. So that's a different story.
Also impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's that. I don't know. I mean, I think we should. Ek to, I don't know, because we're talking to aspirants also through this medium. This exam is an academic exercise. The story ends there. All of these things will matter once you're in the services.
True.
And it is always very good to have these existential questions as to whether am I cut out for it, would I really like the job that I'm trying to get into, is it worth the time that I'm spending in. Once you've decided, give yourself a year of unadulterated focus to the exam at least. If you start questioning your choices every 3 months,
Yeah.
it will start subconsciously affecting the way you're dealing with this exam. So once you've decided I'm going to write the exam and I'm going to give it my best, it is an academic exercise. X is your syllabus, Y is your PYQ, Z is what you have to study. डीएम की क्या पावर है, कलेक्टर की क्या पावर है, मेरे को फॉरेन सर्विसेज में कितना तनख्वाह मिलेगा, विल आई गेट अ फॉरेन गर्लफ्रेंड और नॉट. These are things you should not be thinking about. Will I have more power? Is the SP more powerful or the DM is more powerful? Can I fire anybody I want to? All that nonsense should not really get into, which is the problem. Clickbaiting. And also there's a generational change.
True.
People, and just think about it. Sorry, I'm just.
Yeah.
Just look at the hypocrisy. I was talking about this to somebody else the other day also. Just thought people generally have a shorter attention span. As a result, they're more fidgety. And when they're more fidgety, you start feeding them content which serves, adds on to their fidgetiness, reels or clickbait or whatever.
Okay.
And then you say, see, you have a fidgeting problem. Here is a 10-hour video. You're like, now I've sat for 10 hours. I've watched a 10-hour video. I have now studied. Look, we've all worked hard. How much have you really studied?
10-hour marathon videos.
Yeah.
I never did that. I can't. अब 10 साल में नहीं कर पाई, 10 दिन में नहीं कर पाई, 10 hours में क्या कर लो?
Matlab, I don't understand. In some subjects it works. In my subject it does not work. I know my
2x
subject.
and I'll just point out कि these are the pointers that I have to go back and cover it
The
up.
point of
That's it.
best way to do marathon video is let the video get done, then
Yeah.
do a 2x and then do things that you don't want to or
Exactly.
you didn't have an idea.
Yeah, I'll just note out those things and go back and read. But so I'll come to the last question before I go to the rapid fire.
Yeah.
And when we are talking about this, when is the right time? Actually, I'll have two last questions because the first question would come down this: कि when is the right time to exit this exam?
Fantastic. 2 to 3 serious attempts, and nobody in the world knows apart from you whether it's a serious attempt or not.
True.
Your marks don't. Whether you've cleared the pre or not does not matter. It does not. There is no quantifiable way to say X is a serious attempt or not. Yes, if you've cleared the pre once, it is a comforting layer. But deep down under, if you know this is all you could do, and it has been 2, 3 attempts, get out of it. Simple as that. Not worth it. Or even if it's worth it, it's going to come at a great cost. Right? So, yeah, that.
And if you are a serious aspirant, Youthocracy is happy to hire.
Huh. And nowadays, like Youthocracy, there's, you guys have started creating a parallel ecosystem. There are, you got these political consultants,
Yeah.
who work with these political parties. Their research division is mostly ex-UPSC aspirants. Yeah,
We are hiring
I,
more.
there's a reason.
That's
So,
essential. Like,
yeah,
a lot of people don't know that when we do the parliamentary research for an MP, we want people who have at least written mains once,
yeah,
so that they are the one who would, उनका जितना frustration है वो यहाँ पे help करेंगे, and that goes on. That is really a great career.
the scripts and the ops guys at most media houses are ex-UPSC aspirants.
Rahul is an UPSC aspirant.
Right,
I was an aspirant myself.
right. So, a lot of people who are in think tank research are ex-UPSC fellows. I'm not saying that life is glorious. You guys have worked very hard to be here. It's not as if Youthocracy or anything else cropped up out of thin air. You've done those sleepless nights because you're also accustomed to the hard work that UPSC takes,
Pressure taking a bit
pressure taking. So if you studied well, you'll end up somewhere.
somewhere.
That's the premise.
So I will not miss out this question, just the way serious aspirants miss out this one part of civil service, and that is CSAT. How does one roll about CSAT? Because I remember this is a very funny incident. I flunked in my CSAT paper. I cleared my GS paper. I flunked in my CSAT paper. I will also add into here when you say about attention span. I'm among one such person. मेरा जहाँ एग्जाम का सेंटर पड़ा था, मेरी किस्मत भी अजीब थी कि it was somewhere near a wine shop or something. अब मेरा it was near exactly the window. अब मैं साइड में like first paper went well, second paper I'm seeing that two people are fighting, they're drunk. अब instead of focusing on the paper, मैंने उधर विंडो के बाहर देख रही हूँ उधर क्या चल रहा है. And I'm again writing. I'm like, okay, I have to finish my CSAT paper, and that is very calculative. You have to be very time bound on that. There was a guy sitting next to me. He was from IIM Shillong. I can't believe he did that to me in a civil service exam and not a school 10th board. He's doing pen poking me and asking, second ka answer kya? I'm like, are you mad? I mean, first of all, they will throw me out of this exam hall. Second thing, we don't have the same set, obviously. And you're asking me this in an UPSC exam. And I can't be even
See,
like,
you're the one from IIM.
yeah, exactly. You are from the IIM. You're not supposed to do that.
You're supposed to help us.
And अब मैं सोची कि and I can't be a school student and say, ma'am, ये cheating कर रहा है, I can't do that. And I am like, halfway, I lost my CSAT paper. I attempted undervalued. I knew I'm losing it. Because my preparation was very bad. I was overconfident. I took my GS, I overdid GS, and CSAT was super underdid. Not even barely a decent enough that I did. I didn't touch maths at all. That was a very bad decision. And life took me turns. I got into business and now I love maths. But a lot of people skip out on CSAT. Or they're like कि ये ना 10th level नहीं पूछते हैं. Actually 10th level भी नहीं पूछते हैं. थोड़ा higher पूछते हैं. How does one go about it?
Is CSAT fundamentally tougher than what it used to be? Yes. Is it unfair for students to be subjected to the degree of reasoning that CSAT is asking? Yes.
Thank you.
Unquestionably, this is not, if anybody says CSAT is doable and CSAT is class 10th or if you can't do this, then you can't think of yourself as a civil servant, solve the CSAT paper. Some of the questions are at par, if not worse than CAT.
Yeah.
And we've had this, grip with the UPSC for the longest time, simply because once back in the day, CSAT used to be counted. Then there were translation errors. The papers were exceedingly tough. They were clearly biased for people who didn't come from an English speaking background, or English was not one of their primary languages. Yes. So it's not just Hindi. any regional language would have fundamentally have a problem with CSAT because there were translation errors.
Okay.
And if you get a translation error in a comprehension, the question changes.
Yeah.
The question changes. A becomes B, B becomes A.
Yeah.
So is CSAT fundamentally a problem? Yes. Are the odds stacked against you when it comes to CSAT? Yes. There are a few people, there are the engineers, there are the BCom guys of the world, there are the SRCC Xavier's fellows of the world for whom CSAT is a cake. I understand that. But that's 5%. 95% of the kids will have a functional problem with CSAT. The answer to this is start before it's too late. Also, see, for example, if you've read the Constitution a little bit, it is effectively comprehension. Article says X. Does it also mean Y? Does it also include Z? That's the same skill set you would apply in a verbal passage. The question is, are you thinking like that?
Solving mocks can help.
Yes, solving mocks can help. Start early. Find your problem areas. For somebody, data would be a problem. For somebody, reasoning would be a problem. For somebody, maths would be a problem. If maths has 20 types of questions, do your 5 types, do them well, and try to get bare minimum. But you have to. It is a devil you have to live with. You can question the existence as much as you want, but it's also I don't know. The UPSC exam is a trailer to UPSC as a career. Bureaucracy is a career.
True.
You've got to live with things you don't like
Like Pakistan.
without a fail. I mean, they are a different ball game altogether.
The way we can't choose our neighbors, we can't
We can't choose
CSAT.
our, yeah, you can, yeah.
So I'll come to a rapid fire
Yeah.
section.
Okay.
What is one of the most proudest moment for you as a teacher?
Uh, so on principle, whenever the results come out, I've never contacted anybody. I don't. I find it unbecoming. I find it very. Imagine tomorrow if you clear the exam and I call you up and say, "Hey, you studied from me. How did you like it?" It's so unfair. It is so unbecoming, and I find it to be very disgraceful. So every time the results come out, students out of the blue will message or email and say, we studied from you, we've got XYZ rank, and we're happy. That's a good moment because you've not spoken to them. There is no I don't keep records and I don't have a data of students ever, which people who work with me always give me heat about. What is wrong with you? Why don't you keep a data? You know so many people across so many years. You can make a phone call here, you can make a phone call there, and people. I'm like, no, I just did. My job is to teach, and as long as I'm doing that is one of the things at a personal level I'm a little proud of. But as a teacher, one of the most incredible things is UPSC's syllabus is one of the best syllabus to teach. It's one of the best portions to teach. When there is a boy of a certain thinking who understands gender is a social construct,
Yeah.
when I'm teaching vulnerable sections in social
Yeah.
justice, the kid goes back home and questions everything he's seen in his life. That is what I live for. It's not the selections. It's not how many questions I got right, or how many questions have come in the paper. Those are fast food pleasures.
True.
Those are pleasures that will be very recurring in nature. But when a child understands gender and the position of gender and how it impacts so many things, that's what the syllabus teaches you. You change the way they look at things. Perspective. And their school and their college we as an industry exist because our education system failed us.
True.
The second our education system picks up, I'll be happy to retire into the hills and I would be growing my vegetables, let's call it that.
We'll do a podcast there.
There, we'll do a podcast there, very happily living there. But that is the reason. And it is incredible. It is incredible to see because they will resist. They'll be like, nahi, nahi, aise thodi hota hai. to make them understand, consequences of caste, gender, the way you look at religion, the way you look
Most
at.
beautiful answer I've ever heard.
Well, honestly, that is, and you see that change in their eyes,
Yeah.
and you see, acha, okay, that is what you live for,
So,
honestly.
this is something I think I'll carry ahead when I go out from this. This is how you change a teacher changes a perspective in someone. So I'll come to the second question that says, if you're short on time right now, only maybe few days left for your prelims, one part that you can actually skip. It's very
In the
controversial.
paper,
Yeah, I mean, in your preparation mode right now.
you can skip a little bit of sleep. I know I told you that you should sleep well, but can you skip anything? Maybe medieval.
Read everything and go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You should don't skip.
So, one trick that always works, one secret trick you would give.
Always works.
Yeah.
Go with your first gut.
Oh,
When you're stuck with two questions, conscience is the power of your brain that you can't map. So it would have read something somewhere, correlated it with something, and there must have been something that would have made sense. So if you're stuck between two options, think of the simplest, the most gut friendly answer, go with it. Good chance it will be right.
as an education in polity, one question that you think may turn up on this during this prelims.
Uh I'm expecting a question on the powers of the Supreme Court because not been asked for a long time and 75 years to the Supreme
Sir,
Court.
bet लगाएंगे.
Bet लगा लेते हैं, बिल्कुल लगा लेते हैं. So yeah,
If that happens, then you're coming again on the podcast.
yeah, 100.
Done.
I'll teach the Supreme Court only.
So, what to do a day before the exam?
Sleep on time. Can't stress this enough. Don't eat. Don't stress eat. And I'm the last person to give gyan on eating because clearly it's my favorite pastime. But eat well, eat light, pack everything a day before. I know I sound like somebody's parent, but kids will have a headache between two exams. They'll suddenly have a fever in the morning. They'll have an upset stomach in the morning. They'll not carry their pencils and their black pens, and they'll imagine going to the prelims exam and asking the person in front of you, can you give me a black ballpoint pen? Carry your photographs, put your documentation, carry a folder, be a school kid.
Yeah.
Have a checklist every year before the prelims. I release a checklist. Have you put your two pencils? Have you put your two pens? Have you put one loose motion medicine? Yeah. I am very, yeah. Every, have you put your headache medicine, fever medicine, your nausea medicine, your everything, pencil box, rubber, ये वो सब रख के जाओ, please.
अब बिलीव नहीं करेंगे, व्हेन आई वाज इन स्टैंडर्ड 10th मैं तो अपना आई हैड अ लकी साबुन का डब्बा.
Oh,
Now they'll throw me out if I do that. So I went and appeared my board exam with my sabun ka dabba, and I argued that this is my lucky thing. I can't leave it, or else I'll fail the exam.
like a container.
Yeah, completely. But now I won't do that. I think I passed my 10th exam also for that. I don't know.
UPSC centers are more secure than Pakistan's warheads. Like, obviously.
So, one last piece of advice you would give to students right before they enter the exam hall. And you can't say all the best.
No. Let's see what you've got. Look at the exam and be like, I've got this. What is the worst that's going to happen? I'll write it again next year. Write it like you own it. Yeah. Take a deep breath. Be fine. There's nothing more important than being calm. Those 2 hours, if you're calm, you'll get out of the toughest of questions.
And yeah, when he says you have to be calm, not during the preparation time and you just remain calm throughout the time, it's the entire process where you have worked so hard that when you enter the exam hall, you know that कि कुछ भी हो जाए, I'm not losing out this. There's this कहावत that I remember. तुम मेहनत का साथ कभी मत छोड़ना, किस्मत तुम्हारा साथ कभी नहीं छोड़ेगी. You keep giving your best, you keep working hard, go with your gut feeling. And who knows, maybe the next time we are talking to Sir and he's mentioning your name as someone he's very proud of, one of his student who has made it to the list. And I'm looking forward to that. आई होप आपको ये पॉडकास्ट अच्छा लगेगा। आई होप हमारे इस अटेम्प्ट से आपकी थोड़ी मदद हुई होगी। एंड इफ दैट हैपेंस, एंड अगर एक भी स्टूडेंट को कहीं ना कहीं से थोड़ा सा मदद इम्पैक्ट आया होगा, then I think then this podcast is more successful than any amount of viewership or numbers. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe so that we can keep doing this for you. Take care and all the best.